Hello folks, welcome to a new video, a new set of hobby nightmares. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below, the Patreon button is also down below if you want to get me a pint or anything as we head in towards the summer. Although, you'll be greatly disappointed to know that outside it is currently rainy and cold, so, you know, welcome to England, I suppose. Hopefully you're having a better day, having a good day. Let's jump into some hobby nightmares, shall we, before we go anywhere else. Nathan says, "Greetings, North. I am not writing to you today with an abject hobby nightmare. I'm seeking advice, or perhaps a pep talk. Alright, okay, it's Monday. Let's start with one of those, shall we? I wrote about a year ago about how my love for the hobby had been rekindled by a co-worker, asking me if I'd like to play Warhammer 40k with him. I jumped on the opportunity, and used it to conquer my fear of painting models that had been implanted with me as an adolescent by a less than graceful owner of a local hobby store. Mate, been there. My first few models back in the hobby were just abysmal, and they just killed my confidence. But that Games Workshop manager, who was a terror and all other things, was really good at teaching me how to paint. I will say that. Games Workshop did a lot for my hobby before it ruined it later on. But moving on. Unfortunately, the aforementioned co-worker decided that 40k wasn't for him and quit playing after one game. I was left adrift in a mire of broken dreams and grey plastic. I don't know anybody else who plays 40k, and due to my work schedule, I find it difficult to make friends. I work from 5 PM to 3 AM most days, so I'm leaving for work as normal people are getting home, and my free time occurs when people are either at work or asleep. Been there too, mate. I don't currently have any friends and haven't hung out with anyone aside from my wife and my 2-year-old son since 2019. I've obviously had trouble making friends as an adult/new father. I decided to use the hobby as a tool to network and make new friends. I frequented my local hobby store, my Warhammer store, as well as other gaming locales in the hopes of running into somebody able to work around my schedule and perhaps become a hobby partner and perhaps a true friend. Dude, you're too wholesome for this world, this life. Sadly, these excursions have been less than fruitful. I tend to seek out people who are close to my age. I'm quickly approaching 40. I've talked to a few of the greybeards, but have yet to run into anyone who would be a good fit for me. Take last Saturday, for instance. I stopped by my local Warhammer store to assemble some models and, of course, seek some friends. I sat next to a fellow greybeard, building some Necron models, and swearing prolifically. Just my type. I saddled up next to him and started putting together my Azrael model. We started off with some harmless small talk, and he was quick to show me his impressive collection of Necrons. Maybe this could be the start of something. The Necron assembler, I never procured his name, told me he was killing time until his movie started. My Warhammer store is located within the same shopping district as a large cinema. I asked him what he was going to see, and apparently the Labyrinth was celebrating its 40th anniversary. Cool. I'd enjoyed that movie in my youth, and could understand somebody of my age wishing to relive their youth with some wishful nostalgia. Oh, how naive I was. I knew this was going here. I get to see Jennifer Connelly in her prime, the Necron assembler proclaimed. Oh, before he goes anywhere, right? Alright, before he goes anywhere, Jennifer Connelly, about 8 to 9 years after Labyrinth, was probably the hottest woman walking planet Earth for a good couple of decades, right? She's still hot now. If you've seen Top Gun Maverick, you know she's still hot now, right? But back then, she was just a slayer. Like, it literally just took one look at her, and your breath just sucked out of your chest, kind of a thing. She walked into a room. That's how hot she was. In Labyrinth, though, she's not old and... dude, she's not an adult in Labyrinth. This is weird. This is some weird stuff. You know, if you ever want to know that you're normal, go and watch Labyrinth. If you're not attracted to Jennifer Connelly and that, you're normal. Don't worry about it, right? You know what I mean? Because, you know, later on, she's gorgeous. And she doesn't look that different. Do you know what I mean? It's just your brain just switches off. When you can just see somebody's not of age, your brain just switches off that part of your brain. You know what I mean? But as soon as like the 2021, fucking yeah, Jennifer Connelly was amazing, absolutely amazing. So I agree with him on that one, but not in Labyrinth. That's some weird shit right there. Don't get me wrong, he says. As a red-blooded American, I have fond memory of Jennifer's more tawdry scenes in, Requiem for a Dream. Filmed when she was literally an adult. Now it's been some years since I've seen The Labyrinth, but I recall Miss Connelly being a child in 1986. After some sly googling on my part, I discovered that she was 15 during the filming of The Labyrinth. There you go. Yeah, told you. Your brain switches off, dude. It just does. You go from like, that person looks a bit young. Your brain goes into father mode rather than anything else. Perhaps, again, yeah, you're on the same wavelength. Perhaps as a father of a young child, I am overly sensitive to the subject of, that kind of thing. But Necron Assembler's over giddiness at the thought of a 15-year-old pushed me over the fucking edge. I cobbled together my chapter master as fast as I could, and I apologised to the First Legion for my substandard work, and got the hell out of there before Necron Assembler could fill me in with his nuanced opinions on the age of consent laws. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, one sec, I'm going to take a sip of tea. One sec. Alright. Am I being overly pessimistic? It seems like every one of the people I tried to establish a connection with over the hobby are either mewing man-children or, this way inclined. There are normal people who partake in the hobby, right? I know that statistically, I've experienced some horrible luck, and that most people playing 40k are normal dudes and blokes. But I'm getting frustrated with my experience. I've used online resources, including the Northern Exile Discord, with no luck. I started to think that maybe I'm the problem, and that I'm not worthy of having a friend. Oh, dude, no. Get that out your head. I look to you, North, for any advice you may have. I am open to trying anything to make some friends and roll some goddamn dice. I'm introspective enough to understand that it may indeed be me who is the problem, and welcome any criticism you may have of my own actions or behaviours. I'm in the Salt Lake, Utah area, if that's of any interest to your listeners. I'd love to play some 40k and make some new friends. Well, if you want to, mate, give me your email address and I'll stick it in the description so people can actually reach you personally. But be aware, this is YouTube, so you may be getting some junk mail there too. In terms of, if it's you, no, it's not, mate. You're completely normal. You're a normal guy. You're a normal guy who wants to make friends in the hobby. In fact, I would say you're kind of abnormal in the way that you're very open about wanting friends. In the UK, people would be very cynical about that and would try and, take the piss a little bit. But I really like the fact that you're just open about it. That you just want some friends to play some dice with. You're in the right there, by the way. Don't judge yourself like judging that guy. That would rub me up the wrong way as well, and I'd need to just walk away. But my Schadenfreude would probably make me stay there just so I could get a hobby nightmare out of it. Do you know what I mean? So I can listen to him slowly go down the rabbit hole without me prodding him and doing anything, because they always do. They always go down the rabbit hole themselves eventually. You know what I mean? And again, they'll get more and more extreme until you're like, mate, I don't want to talk about this. You're weird. Shut up. Yeah, but the Jennifer Connelly thing, that is pretty creepy. That is pretty creepy. So, you're not in the wrong there. But yeah, I don't think you're doing anything wrong, dude. I think you've just been really unlucky. As you just said, you've just been unlucky, certain cities and places, you have to remember, if you've gone to that store and had that experience, on the second visit, how many people do you know may have gone to that store and had similar experiences? Do you know what I mean? So you have to remember that as well. Your local store is the mecca of the hobby in your local area. So if people are walking into that local store and getting a bad atmosphere or getting creeped out, it stands to reason that many of those normal people who went into that store have left just like you did. Okay? My advice would be, continue doing what you're doing now. I don't think there's any more you can do. Just put yourself out there, continue trying to meet new people, and eventually you will meet them. Online resources are good, as you've said. Maybe try one that's more worldwide than the Northern Exile Discord, because I know we've got lots of people on there, but the likelihood of you finding a few friends from, you know, Salt Lake is pretty low, you know, on our Discord. You'll probably find somebody in the States, maybe even in the Midwest, but you probably won't find anybody in Salt Lake. Do you know what I mean? If you are from Salt Lake and you're watching this video, there is a man here who would like to play some Warhammer with you. So go and take him out, play some Warhammer. In terms of other things, I would suggest Reddit, but it is an absolute cesspool at the best of times, and the good people on there can be counted on probably one hand. You know what I mean? If you're normal and you're on Reddit, you're probably one of those people. But in terms of every time I've gone on there, all I've seen is like vitriol and people just getting, you know, just ill-informed bullshit. Basically, every single time I've gone on there, it's just been ill-informed bullshit by people who should probably know better. So I'm not sure whether that's the place for you. There's got to be an online resource that you can use, to get games and get players and to get to know people. There's got to be, you know. Have a little look around, see what you can find. But I would just carry on doing what you're doing, okay? Your standards are not too high. Put it that way. That is some advice I can give you. You're not doing anything wrong right now. Your standards are not too high. You want a normal person to roll some dice with, that's fine, okay? You will find them eventually. Maybe try different games. I've noticed that quite a bit, is that people get friends who play 40k through things like D&D, or, you know, or the role-playing games. You know, that they start doing that, then all of a sudden somebody will mention something about Warhammer in the game, and before you know it, you're rolling dice with that person. You already know them, you're already getting along, that kind of thing. But I will do what I can for you. So if you give me your email, I'll put it on the doobly-doo description down below, and people can reach you that way. All right, cool. War Virgin says, War Virgin. I don't think anonymity is essential here, but please call me the War Virgin, okay? Catching up on all your videos as quickly as I can, and I really enjoy the shared wisdom and stories coming in, so thank you to everybody. Please keep it going, and thanks again to all those who are on the Discord supporting our community. Do not underestimate the impact you can have. It's often said that this hobby takes in broken people, and I feel it's important we keep that a safe, inclusive environment. I agree. Which is part of the reason I am here. So far, my whining has all been absorbed by my wife. I'm here to get a broader opinion and perspective, and maybe make sure I am not the problem myself. Alright, cool. I like it. About a year ago, my friend reached out to me, extending an invite to a couple of us about starting up in 40k. I like it. I like it. My friend, who we shall call Morty, has been playing for years, often telling us how good previous editions of the game are, especially 6th edition. All the locations and shops he played at had a try at every army, all bought, painted and sold on. Now though, we can join in. We take the hit and play 9th edition with him, so we can all get started. I need no convincing / giving a nudge or a little encouragement to know it's safe to come out. To know it's safe to come out is all it takes, okay? I don't know what that means. I needed no convincing. Giving a nerd a nudge or a little encouragement to know it's safe to come out is all it takes. Okay, with you. It's me being a retard, not your writing skill, no problem. Recently having a kid, I needed something that wasn't going out and about, as I had done previously with these friends in doing things like airsoft. That is another hobby plagued with hobby nightmares and expense, but I'll get into that a little bit later on. Yeah, no worries. No worries. I jumped in feet first with 40k. I bought a couple of starter sets from the local Warhammer store. Lucky you for your KPIs, indeed. And had myself a nice little set of Necrons, maybe equivalent to the latest Combat Patrol set. Codex, rules, paints, dice, and flexi measuring sticks. I started from scratch, only to start painting and finding that Necrons were not really for me. Brilliant models to look at, but I could feel as their blank stare came back towards me, like Dementors attacking me, my soul would soon be lost too. In my flurry of discovering the hobby, I listened to some more discussions about armies, picking up the starter set magazine and store too, so I had some reading and broader details about the universe. I was adamant I would not be Space Marines, or any of the good guys fighting for human civilization. Sticking with Xenos, or letting chaos reign, I would start a new army. From the starter set magazine, I get a little hooked on the Orcs idea, and the way of life. So we go for an Orc Codex. Well, if we had a lack of soul before, we found the comedy gold of the 40k universe. I laughed my way through the Orc lore, and my wife may have even sparked an interest at this point towards 40k through my own stories. That's great. I love it when it spreads through osmosis to people that you never thought would like 40k. The Orc way of life was, for me, way out there having the most fun shooting some Dakar and getting to crumping. My wife and I are convinced Orcs have a harsh Yorkshire accent. I adopted the Orc philosophy of wish it, want it, do it. Well, Orcs have a Cockney accent. That is something that we all know. Like, Orcs have a good old crumping, mate. Get in there, sort it out. Whack him on it, that kind of thing. That's an Orc, right? He's not really Yorkshire. Yorkshire's like a farmer. You could get a farmer Orc, I suppose. So, I start back messaging Morty about my new choice. And when I have some paint slapped on my boys, I'd be willing to play. I'm cultured enough, I refuse to play with anything less than primed. Morty's response is to zap me with our energy, bringing me down off of my perfect wave. I don't think anything I did or chose could have been enough for Morty. The Orcs army is flawed, easy to beat, cannon fodder horde army. Too much painting to do for one turn on the table, he said. I also think there was some disappointment that any list created to beat Necrons now had to be redrawn. I was crushed. So, before I play my first game, I want to remind those out there that just love the painting. I get it. The closest thing to meditation I have found is painting these minis. Forget yoga and Tai Chi or any other gubbins. That's a lot of time to occupy a busy mind trying to create nothingness. How my focus homes in and takes up all my space absorbs me in the hobby, and at that moment, I feel complete. Better yet, I come back to reality. You have something to show for your efforts that you can proudly show off, display, or put to work on the tabletop. Now I have my boys, and I've never rolled a dice in war, and I'm off to Morty's to play. My other pal, who hadn't gotten around to buying anything yet, did some borrowing of Morty's old Space Marines. Good. I didn't like Space Marines much, so anything I hit was a bonus. Good lad, dude, you're literally an Orc. Good lad. Let me take a sip of tea. Now, I'm no tactician. Yeah, you're an Orc player. No shit. Do you know what really irks me, dudes? And please don't get triggered by this. But when an Orc player plays tactically, my soul turns over. I'm like, ugh, God, no, just, no. Similar energy to that early Jennifer Connelly lover. You know what I mean? Like, I get the same reaction. Like, oh, God, what are you doing? Like, stop. Like, why are you playing with tactics? You're Orcs. Just run at me, dude. Do whatever you want to do. You play your army however you want to. But, I can always feel how I want to feel about it, right? If you're playing Orcs like special ops tactics, ugh, not my thing. I'm no tactician, but I could see the trap was set. Okay. Loading up about 500 points of Orcs, or just over, onto the tabletop, out comes the Space Marine force deploying on the table. A list I'm sure was designed by Morty, and he told my pal to play to best beat the Orcs. The terrain allowed plenty of line of sight for that long-range beaky Dakar against the boys' heavy armor t-shirts. My best chance of taking the Rhino was if my war boss got on top of it. With only Grots to sacrifice along his slow journey. So what did I learn from game 1? Losing my war virginity. This game sucks balls. Rubbing salt into the wounds, Morty and Pal told me how they had set the table to least favour my army. I knew I was in for a rough start, but what is it they say about the bucket for the hobby? I was about to leak out. I would have failed my morale check like they did my boys. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Games Workshop love to use an analogy about the hobby, about a bucket and water being poured into the bucket. So the hobby for them is a bucket with holes in the bottom of it. We're pouring water into it. The water is you guys coming into the hobby and staying in the hobby, being retained in the hobby. But people are always falling through that hole in the bucket, you know, several holes. So it's up to us to keep that tap turned on. Attitudes like this by Morty, you know, they kind of make more holes in the bucket. Do you know what I mean? More people leave. Anyway, roll on for game 2 a few weeks later. I bought some faster moving boys on Squigs. My Death Dread was ready to get in the mix, and Morty had a new faction to play with too. I know how exciting that can be, but I've already heard enough about the Leagues of Atan to know I was going to have a bad day at the tabletop. Of course he's got Leagues of Atan. Of course. In late 9th edition. So I press about if Morty has the Codex points update. Aren't they a little bit elite? These subtle cries for a bit of sympathy which I was giving off had no meaning whatsoever. Of which the responses I got included a lot of swears that I don't think need repeating, and I should maximise the use of my codex by using it properly like they had. Yeah, it's easy for them to do that when they've got one of those overpowered codexes in Warhammer history, but, you know, there we go. So we deploy and start off. My squigs run forward to meet those fast attack bikes that have already had a scout move. By way of turns, my squigs are quickly gone. The boys, having followed, not too far behind, had a taste of everything a land fortress had to offer. My war boss sat at the back with a trusty Death Dread nearby, which, as it turns out, moved too far from the board edge and out of deployment zone, and was therefore due a visit from the Leagues of Atan's Terminator equivalents. All armed with plasmas to melt away any gubbins that aren't bolted on tightly enough to survive. Then, just to be sure, the Power Fists moved in and finished the job. The Leagues of Atan are white hot, and to be fair to Morty, he has it together when it comes to tactics and strategy. My only surprise was my Death Copters swooping in on the land fortress, ready to deliver a hailstorm of rockets. Gork and Mork did not grin upon the dice rolls though, but that's orc shooting for you. Yep, there you go. So you may be thinking if I ever actually learned to play. The answer is honestly, no. By the way of not keeping it simple and explaining step by step what needs to happen, we would just have been shooting rules bit by bit as per the credit/recruit/elite edition magazines. I have not returned to Morty's house to play. Since learning more about the hobby, I have come across an analogy, shared by the guys over at Poorhammer with different types of players. I am Timmy. I want everyone to have fun. I want to see some things get blown up, and I don't care who wins and loses. That's me. That's me! I'm also Timmy. Timmer! No, sorry. Morty is Spike, a meta player that must win at all costs. An example would be when Morty, at Christmas, helped introduce a young family member to the hobby. The kid had started an orc army, good choice, and has all the best characters. Morty accepted the friendly invite to play a little game, and played the kid to a draw. He played a kid new and excited to the hobby to a fucking draw. Then bleated to me about it and how unbalanced and unfair orc character units are. Oh my god. Oh no. I see what you're saying there. Like it. Playing him to a draw is worse than actually going there and just stomping him. Do you know what I mean? That would have been the most drawn out, painful battle ever. Oh my god. Wow, if I could share those texts. Toxicity, irony, and hypocrisy have never made a better single rage outburst story. Dude, I've had a few of them this weekend, trust me. I conclude that Morty is a bitter person that believes they are too good for the game. They needed some fodder because he wasn't getting enough games, but should really go out there any play tournaments to meet these other hardcore players. Okay, please reread our work before we send it in. A subject I have touched on, but I've been shot down on, because 10th is childish and even more simplified. They have taken a game I love, and they keep on ruining it, so Morty says. Then why is he playing? Why is he playing? I'm getting tired just listening to him. Since then, my wife, an emo nerd, has taken sympathy and joined in with some Chaos Demons. There is a little bit of blind teaching the blind going on here, but you know what? We have fun finding it all out. More visits to the hobby shops, discussions and understanding. We have made good use of those starter set magazines, introducing the rules as we get more familiar. Emo Nerd Wife has started to understand the limits of Khorne Chaos Demons, so I've convinced her she is more than passably hot and will be getting Tyranids. Alright, for all the writing faux pas here, I like this guy. I like the cut of your jib. I like your style. So this overall introduction in my first year has led to a fantastic outcome, though I may say I did not know my wife was hot before this moment. Sorry, though I may say I did know my wife was hot before this moment. If you're listening, I read that wrong. Alright, don't get divorced. I read that wrong. Though I must say I did know my wife was hot before this moment. Good lad. So there we have it. Please introduce people to the hobby, and please be considerate in how you do it. A past story you have shared on the channel that sticks in my mind was when a young hobbyist went to a tournament as a spectator with a hopeful army tucked away in their bag. A fellow spectator experienced in the game offered to play, took a loss, and discussed tactics, strategy, army, objectives, etc. That is an ambassador, my friends, and what we should all aim to be. Cheers. No, you're right. Completely right. Completely right. Listen, guys, I'm not telling you to throw your games. I'm not telling you to do that, right? That'd be lame. Don't throw your games. Play your games fully and to the full extent that you want to play them. Absolutely. Like you do what you want to do. But at the same time, if you are currently playing a beginner, you know, play the game, you know, take your foot off the gas a bit, have some fun. You know, the best hobbyists out there aren't really segregated to one kind of hobbyist or the other. I know I'd form into the Timmy ranks there, but like, I think every hobbyist should like dabble in all of them, be able to switch up on a fly. The best hobbyist would. The best hobbyist would become a spike against, you know, a really good elitist tournament player against another really good elitist tournament player at the drop of a hat. But then when they come across a Timmy, like me, they sit down, they create a fluffy list, and they just have some fun rolling some dice. Those are the best, most talented hobbyists. Being good at the game doesn't make you a good hobbyist. Sorry, it doesn't. Okay? Being good at the game means you can read. That's what being good at 40k is. Congratulations, you can read. Yeah, moving on. You know what I mean? Like that's not what being a good hobbyist is. Being a good hobbyist is being able to switch up at a whim and is growing the hobby. If your actions are growing the hobby in any way, shape, or form, you're a good hobbyist. Doesn't matter how small it is. You're a good hobbyist. Anyway, Jethro Bull says, "Hey North, hope you're having a good day. Things are generally fine over here, and I actually have an hour or two free, so figured I'd get in touch and share a hobby nightmare for once. I always feel a bit left out, I guess, as the guys in the WhatsApp and the Discord have so many more nightmares than me. But I flew under the radar at Games Workshop, I guess. But still, here is my hobby nightmare. This one covers John, the rather eccentric Games Workshop manager-trainer who I actually had a decent relationship with. The dude looked a bit like Randy Marsh from South Park, so when you've done thumbs with that character in the past, I always think back to John. Well, I'll have to make sure that Randy's in this one as well, on the thumbnail. When I first became a manager at Games Workshop, he was a funny, charismatic, and generally quite a good guy. We would talk about all things hobby whilst we did our training, and he insisted on doing the most awkward role-play training sessions ever. Like literally my toes would curl up just thinking back to it. He would, in the closed store, insist that I act like I was going about my business as a manager, and he would walk in pretending to be a customer. Then we would act out an interaction. It was as bad as it sounds. Just fucking Horrific. I did this as well. It was really funny. Like my trainer would walk in, and he had this like really big beard, and he'd walk in like, yes, nice models, yes. And I'd walk over, and I had to act like I didn't know who he was. Hi, can I help you? Oh. And we do like a back and forth role play. It was cringe. Oh my god, it was awful. But you know, it's what it is. I got through it though, and I ended up being in charge of my own store for a few years. Good man, excellent. Nice stuff. It was a decent place, and when John did come around to check on my progress, like once a year, he would just wander around, check his phone, and generally get on with his day. There were a few times he would pull me aside to talk about certain things he thought could be better, but in general, I got the gist that this was more so we could say he did his job, rather than actually needing to coach me. Which I was fine with. We've all been there. Yeah, we've all been there. Absolutely. I actually had my own narrative campaign going on in the store for a time, and this was one thing that John was, unfortunately, not quite happy with. He instructed me not to do the campaign, but insisted he would stay with me for when I made the announcement to the store that the campaign was off, so that he could explain why and take the brunt of the blame if need be. Good man. Good man. I like this guy. I like this guy. He knows how to play the game. I like this guy. Game of life. Not quite 40k. I figured this was a solid he was doing me, and it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah. This is the first time I've heard of a trainer doing this. Normally a trainer at Games Workshop just, you know, leaves you with the mess and walks away. This guy is actually doing his job. I like this. Towards the end of the day, I was kind of dreading the announcement, as I was enjoying the campaign, you know. So many in the store were enjoying it too. My real problem, though, was Seth. I have no idea if that was his real name, but there we go. It always seemed a bit weird having this over-the-top Seth guy in a store full of Mikes and Daves, but there we are. Seth was very opinionated, which is no bad thing to me, but also was fairly over-the-top, getting into very large lore discussions and insisting on his opinions being absolutely correct at all times. Above all, though, he hated the Games Workshop corporate machine and had really bought into the online hatred of anything Games Workshop related. He was always alright with me, though, because I allowed things like the narrative campaign, and I told him in person if he ever created problems for me with his attitude, I'd just ban the fuck out of him and move on. He respected that upfrontness, and we got on as best we could. He was always upsetting people with his abrasive attitude, though, and I just knew that that day, I didn't want him there. Imagine my dismay when he strides in, holding his case of Black Templars like he was Julius Caesar returning to the Senate after conquering Gaul. I thought you'd like that one. Yeah, I do. Thank you for your history nod there. In he comes, slamming his Crusader case down, and proceeds to argue about how many crusades the Black Templars have going on, as if he is giving a university lecturer to idiots. I can tell by John's face that he and Seth are not going to get along. Oh no. At the start of the night's gaming is when it happens. John actually gets a glass used for paint water and taps it with a paintbrush to get everybody's attention, like it's some sort of 1800s dinner party. I love it. He then announces a few changes to the store. Firstly, only 500 to 750 point games are allowed in store now to save on space. This gets a few gasps, understandably. Secondly, sadly, the narrative campaign is no more, as this is something that should be done at home and not in store, but he has no problem with the store supporting us on our efforts by selling us models and maybe giving a few free pieces of terrain to soften the blow. That's cool, man. The few pieces of terrain is brilliant. I like that, okay. Why? Seth asks haughtily. This is a fair question in my opinion, as far as I'm concerned. John turns to me and motions for me to continue. I do the most dickish thing ever and just shrug. He just shot several holes in my ship. He can fix them himself. He's a bit flustered at being left high and dry and goes back to Seth. No, mate, you didn't leave him high and dry. It's not your place to explain this. It's not your decision. right? John says, because time in store needs to be dedicated to selling models and allowing the manager to do that with few distractions. The more games are going on, the more he has to spread himself thin. Oh, this has been working for months, Seth said. I don't think Jethro's overworked. I respectfully disagree. Now, on the surface, this does not seem like much, but it kind of was. Firstly, I was overworked, so I kind of took umbrage with Seth saying this when he was unemployed and living at home with his mother. Nothing wrong with that for a bit, to get your life back on track, but he'd been there for 12 years post-university and done nothing with his life. Secondly, it was not Seth's place to disagree on behalf of everybody in the store, who mostly were nodding along with what the trainer was saying at this point. This was private property at the end of the day. It was kind of like you inviting somebody into your home from the street to cook them a meal, and you go to cook Mexican food, and they insist on it being Indian. I mean, it's not illegal to do what he was doing, but it's fucking rude. That's a really good analogy. Yeah, that's a really good analogy. John got his back up, and he said, whether you agree or not is irrelevant, young man. This is the way things are going to be. Unquote. Seth sighed. Ugh, yeah, until you leave, and then we will just put things back the way they were. Unquote. John went red in the face, and I finally stepped in. I told Seth there would be no reversal in the decision, as doing so was not worth me losing my job. Seth sighed again. Whatever, it's not my job. There will be other managers, he said. John rounded on him finally, losing it with his selfishness. And I quote, you can leave, mate, this instant, unquote. When Seth argued the point and asked why, John said, and I quote verbatim, as much as I can remember, because we have explained to you how things are going to be, and you are acting like this just puts Jethro's job in danger. If you sat there, nodded along like everybody else, then went on your merry way whilst I was gone, I could turn a blind eye for Jethro's sake. Now I can't, so kindly get your shit and leave. So it all clicked into place. All along, John had been trying to shield me. He'd just been a trainer dick about it. Seth left, and I let him back in a few weeks later when the narrative campaign storm was finally forgotten about and we were getting on with other things. He would tell people how he, and I quote, told off the Games Workshop trainer, to which I would always correct his ass. Anyways, thanks for reading, North. Speak soon, Jethro. That is really cool. But I get what you're saying. I wish that John there had basically been more upfront about the fact that he was trying to, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, don't do the campaign anymore. But then he walks away and he's got plausible deniability, right? He's like, yeah, I saw nothing, right? That kind of thing. He's done his job. He's told you not to do it anymore with a wink, and he's walked out the store. He just hasn't done as good enough job of it, and obviously this Seth was too fucking dense to get the message anyway, so, But this is one of the first good trainers we've seen on the channel, so well done to him, and well done for you, Jethro, for sending that in. Tomorrow, I will be doing a 40k rant on female custodies, and I don't think I'll have the opinions you think I do. Let's see tomorrow, shall we? I love you a long time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and have a good one. Bye now.